You're listening to the Mike on the Right podcast.
Hey there, and welcome to the Mike on the Right podcast. You are listening to episode 29, released November 17th, 2025. And yes, I am broadcasting from the heart of the heartland in central Indiana, the crossroads of America, the great Hoosier State. You can listen to this episode and all those that came before it at MikeOnTheRight.com. It's going to take you to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you listen to your podcasts, there we will be. If you can continue to give us shares, likes, five-star ratings, subscribe, anything you can do to continue to grow this show. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who week in and week out have been walking on this journey with me. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get right to it. This is kind of an episode that kind of does both. It's one topic. It's got some newsworthiness, but it's also ideological today. And the name of today's episode is The Truth About Energy Affordability. And I'll tell you why I'm talking about this. We've had now 1.5 episodes. This will be the second full one. 1.5 episodes of the 29 that I've done on energy in America and energy in Indiana. And if you're a personal friend of mine, you would know that I just went through the rigors of public interviews related to becoming a commissioner at the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. And if you don't know what that agency is, it essentially sets the safety protocols, rate making for utilities, because utilities are monopolistic. The IURC is kind of a quasi-judicial system that creates artificial competition. And there has been an outcry, especially in Indiana, but across America, on utility bills. But Indiana it's been a firestorm. And I decided to step up. I got a call from a couple of folks, one particularly in the Braun administration, Governor Braun's administration, to say, hey, you might be good for this role. You should step up and apply. I did that. I made the first cut and was interviewed in a public forum. And I did not make the final cut, which is the nomination to the governor, which for each open seat, the law says that this nominating committee has to give 3 names to the governor, and the governor gets to choose the one person for each seat. So they gave him 9 names. There are 3 seats. 1 seat is non-Republican. 2 seats are Republican. So 6 Republicans. I would have been on that list. I didn't make that. And the reason I'm talking about this today is because I have no bones about that. I want the best person for the job and the role. I thought I had a really great interview. I had a lot of great positive comments and remarks, but there was a lot of qualified people that both made it and were in the process, and then there were some that didn't even make the list. So I was very humbled to be on it. But now that I am free and clear of the process, I feel like this is an open letter to Hoosiers, but also this applies to anyone in America that is looking at what's going on right now in the utility bill space and just in power generation and heat generation, just generally, or the usage of energy. This is an open letter on that process, because what I want to talk about is exactly what I would have talked to Governor Braun about had I had the opportunity to come before him and his team to make the case as to why I would be a great choice for commissioner at the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, one of 5 that set there's a lot of staff and team and a lot of folks that kind of set the process together, but the commissioners make the final decisions. And so what I want to talk to you about today is the truth about energy affordability and why it's unaffordable, what can be done, and how we can move here into the future. As of 2025, the U.S. average rate for electricity sits around 15 to 16 cents per kilowatt hour. And Indiana has been kind of riding this wave, depending on where you are, above it, below it. But the projections show that in the next year, there's going to be a surge in electrical usage and electrical usage over the next several years, but the next year specifically over bills. And that's the same thing in natural gas for heating, or whether it's being used for electric generation or what have you. And this is a huge thing on Hoosiers' minds. If you're listening today, I guarantee you've seen your electric bill or your heating bill go up. And why is Indiana kind of in this quandary? Well, it's because the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, a place that I worked at for 5.5 years, has of course been under pressure from utilities and consumer advocates alike to enforce what's called the five pillars. In Indiana statute, the five pillars are the five things that when commissioners make decisions that they have to try to weigh equally. And that is, and this is in no particular order, but reliability, resilience, stability, affordability, and economic sustainability. So reliability, the lights stay on. We don't have blackouts and brownouts. Resiliency, the system can take a hit and bounce back, whether it's from storms or whether it's from, take your pick. Stability, predictable prices, and a system that doesn't swing wildly. Affordability, rates that families and businesses can realistically pay. And environmental sustainability, that we steward the environment as responsible as possible. And so the way I said this, the way this looks to me in the hearing as to whether or not I was going to make it to the next level on the IURC commissioner piece was I see that I always think this is a scale of justice, only there are 5 buckets. And just like with the scales of justice, if you put too much weight in one, they lopside. In this, it's a 5-way weight. And one can throw off many others. And so commissioners have to, and one of the questions I got was, well, how do you balance those? Well, it is kind of in the eye of the beholder, but the other piece of it is that a lot of times when something comes before the utility commission, the information is just like a court. So there's a plaintiff, and that is always the energy company or the water company, who is under the jurisdiction of the commission to get their rates and charges approved. And they say, we need to raise our rate by this because of this. And here's all the data and testimony to support it. And then there's the Office of the Utility Consumer Counselor, another government agency, and they are the counterweight to that. They're kind of the defendant. They defend the ratepayer. So if you're using, let's say, CenterPoint Energy for gas, they are essentially trying to protect you from CenterPoint for having unjust rates. So they would file their information and testimony and data that says why they don't need this much or not at all, or maybe they will support it. And then there could be any type of interveners from any place. There could be citizens' actions groups. There could be members of Congress. Anyone could intervene in the case to place in their testimony and their data. And the administrative law judges will package all this up, and then they'll talk to the commissioners, and they'll come up with some sort of decision, and then the commissioners will vote on it. And then that's what will become that's not law particularly, but it sets the rate. It sets whether there's a settlement agreement or whether they approve or deny or what have you. And so you have to weigh all these. And that's what makes it incredibly difficult. And what we're seeing is I have just felt, and I said this in my testimony, that I feel that there just needs to be a rebalancing on the affordability side. Because we really have 2 things coming up in Indiana and across America, but really in Indiana, that are huge. We have a huge increase in electric demand and natural gas. There's energy demand in general. And then we have an affordability crisis, and some of that's being driven by the cost of energy. Some of it's being driven by the cost of building new electric generation plants or energy generating plants. Some of that is because there are big companies and corporations who need energy, who are coming here to create jobs or to run their business or what have you, who are needing a lot of energy and water and what have you. And when you come into let's say you're in the Duke Energy space, everybody kind of pays for the added infrastructure. But when a company comes in and takes far more than the average resident, it can be unfair. So they have to balance that. And so that's the pressure that's on the Utility Commission. And one of the biggest pieces is we need to be looking at an all of the above strategy. And let me tell you why affordability. Let's get political for just a second. This is mostly an ideological conversation, but I want to get political for 1 second. I talked about this last week in kind of the midterm. The 2025 election post-mortem, heading into the midterms, and what is the wake-up call for Republicans when it comes to the election in 2026? When the president is not on the ballot in Indiana, there's no gubernatorial or senatorial race, so the Secretary of State is at the top of the ballot, but it's mainly a congressional race across America. And the wake-up call was that in Georgia, so in Indiana, we get appointed by the governor. If I was to have been a utility commissioner, I get an appointment by the governor for 4 years, renewable as many times as many governors want to keep me or not. In Georgia, they're elected. And this is a sleepy race in a Republican state, right? The 2026 is going to be a hot election, or whenever the next Senate race is. I guess I haven't paid attention. I thought it was John Ossoff in 2026 who's going to be up for re-election. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it's coming up. But he's a Democrat, and he's very vulnerable because it is a Republican state. It's a Republican legislature, a Republican governor, and Republicans all across the state. But in this race, because it was an off-year election in this utility commissioner race, 2 seats went Democratic for the first time in I don't know how long. And it's because it was a sleepy race. Now you can say, well, that just shows that the Democrats are going to shellac the Republicans nationwide. Well, not necessarily, because you can't use off-year elections or special elections as the baseline for the support of any party. But what I will say is Republicans have been focusing on indictments of those who have broken the law. I believe that Comey and Bremer, I believe all of that they have broken the law and that those things need to occur. They're looking into Gavin Newsom's chief of staff, and they're looking like all these things that have been buried under the rug certainly need to be looked at. But you know what the average American is focused on right now? One of the number one issues, if not the number one state by state, is affordability of groceries, housing, and utilities. And, of course, keeping their job because, again, I said this again also last week, that the Fed used their policy of keeping interest rates high too long, and it's affected the job market. And now we're seeing that tussle in trying to save that by bringing that down. And so affordability is the name of the game. And if Republicans want to win, it's not about redistricting, although, I think it's going to happen in a lot of places, or it is happening in a lot of places. But we can't just rely on mid-cycle redistricting as Republicans in order to win. We still have to make a case to the Hoosiers and to the American people that we are worthy of their trust for another term. And number one is, what are we going to do to make sure that grocery prices are low, that utility prices are fair, that housing is just? How are we going to do that? And I'm specifically talking today about utilities, and that's what I kind of want to get into. The big picture is that prices are rising, and here's the nasty thing about what's going on in Indiana. And this is not an indictment on anybody in the political realm. There will be some of my friends that are like, you should really hit, the XYZ. No. The issue here is that we have an affordability crisis that has been created by a number of pieces and places, and the cost of the energy itself, and the need for transition and forced retirements of coal plants when they didn't need to be yet, and this increase in energy demand that we need. But the nasty little secret about what's going on in Indiana is that the cat is out of the bag. I don't think there is any way that the next utility commission will actually be able to lower a rate. Very similar to, and I lauded Governor Braun for this when it occurred, very similar to the freeze on tuition in colleges across the state. They didn't go down because we know that the cost is insane for healthcare, for energy, for education. It's got not for housing. It's out of control. They're out of control. But price controls don't help either. So we're doing as many things as we can to try to keep things affordable, or to get them back to an affordable level. There is no way. I am sorry. You may hate me for this. There is no way your utility bill is going to go down from a utility commission decision. Now, remember, there are things that in your utility rate, based on what they purchase the energy for, that can make your bill go up and down. But the range in which it can be isn't going to shift in the other direction. But I do believe it can be held and frozen for a period of time, just like the tuition freeze that Governor Braun negotiated, but Purdue was already doing. And let people catch up on the affordability, because none of this happens overnight. That's just the truth about the matter. There's no way it was going to go the other direction. But we could start right now on whatever first case the new majority of commissioners get to to say and to put this is the new standard is we're going to rebalance affordability, and we're not putting in, you guys need to get creative, you investor-owned utilities or whoever. You need to get creative on what your stakeholders or your shareholders can do, and what money you already have, and do you need to be canceling some retirement plans on coal right now? And I have always been, as you know, I am a huge proponent of an all of the above strategy. Why? Because nothing should ever be in one basket. Not everything should be coal. Not everything should be natural gas. Not everything should be nuclear. Not everything should be renewable. Because if something goes down or something gets more expensive, it's just like your retirement fund. You do not have one retirement account. And if you do, you should get more. But you should not have one retirement account, because when it comes to retirement, you want to be able to pull on 4, 5, or 6 levers at the time in which is right. And those funds that may be making more money and the ones that are making less, maybe you want to pull some money out of those other ones and let the ones that are flourishing continue to flourish. And the same thing is for utilities. We have to have diversity in the market. And we're seeing that right now. I was just reading from Reliable Energy, a coal generation association in Indiana, that shows that because natural gas prices have been kind of going up here in this last year, that more people started burning coal. It went back up. Now this is the second year in a row that coal generation in Indiana has gone up, and that coal generation was across America was kind of just declining, and then there was a spike up, and then it kind of plateaued. And at least in Indiana, there's and maybe it's across America, some more coal got burned because it was an issue with price. And that's exactly what we should be doing in Indiana and nationwide, is that diversity. Because we know that renewables can be dispatched. It is faster to build a solar farm and get it somewhere than it is to build a natural gas plant. Now, a natural gas plant is much more steady, and it's not as intermittent as what a utility grade solar farm or wind or whatever. Because again, if the sun don't shine, if the wind don't blow, you may not get as much energy out of it, but you can always be running a natural gas plant. But that doesn't mean that we don't need renewables in the system. We need all of these things. And I have been a proponent because I have lived in the natural gas world for half of my career, part of it in regulation, part of it in construction of natural gas pipelines in Indiana, Illinois, Maine, and New Hampshire. That natural gas is the backbone, and that's where it's continuing. The market is continuing to go next, and then nuclear is going to come in, and we're going to have this whole broad-based sphere until maybe one day we do have, and maybe probably not anywhere near my lifetime, but we have a retirement of fossil fuels. But battery storage has got to get better. Nuclear's got to get built out and better. The infrastructure across America has to be updated and changed, in Indiana especially too. We're very dependent on coal and natural gas, and that's fine because it's reliable. It's reliable energy. But that has to happen, and it takes time for those things to happen. And so another way that this all of the above strategy is important is we can't be, the federal government especially gets in the way. The regulation, and then we talked about the two tails of regulation. The two tails of regulation. The first tail is safety, which there should continue to be strengthened regulation. Pipeline safety, electric safety, etc. But the generation rules, there needs to be a deregulation. And it's this whole forced retirement of coal plants when we have a huge increase in demand, but then we also have people keeping us from putting more natural gas from Canada or wherever else in the United States, or drilling more or doing whatever. You can't have it both ways. You can't kill your coal plants, and then you can't not build natural gas. And the other thing is, when you are building, if you're a utility and you are building new plants, whether they're to replace coal or whether to just have more generation, there should be no way where there should be a 1-for-1. We need to start increasing the capacity, that even though if we don't use it yet, we need to increase the capacity that these new plants can create. And if you have to add renewables to it, or and here's the other thing too. Here's the other nasty secret about energy in Indiana is data centers. And folks all across the fruited plain are protesting these. And the funniest part of it is that usually I see a bunch of people, and this is their right, I'm not shaming anyone. They get on Facebook and they say, we're going to get rid of the Meta data center coming to XYZ County. Or we're not letting Google come in here with this data center because they suck up the electricity, they suck up the water, they create 50 jobs, and it doesn't help us. And they get all these tax incentives. And those facts are true. They're going to need more energy, they're going to need more water. But you want to know the place that people are complaining about it the most? On Facebook, that is dependent on the data centers for them to have the access to complain about it on Facebook. And I'm not saying that we don't need to be smart about it. We have to be smart about it, and we have to put these in the right place, and we have to put them at the right time. And yes, but data centers are going to be needed and necessary in crypto, in social media, in cybersecurity, in banking, in website. Take your pick. And so how do we, but here's the way, this is what I was going to tell the Braun folks, is how do we keep the average everyday payer like you and like me from paying for the energy infrastructure that's going to cause our rates to skyrocket while they put these in our backyard? Because they've got to be close to internet sources. They may have to be close to a water source. Some of them may need to be close to intermodal transportation or to airports or to what have you. Fine. I agree. Fine. But how do we get them the energy and the water that they need without us paying for it? Well, there are a couple of ways. One is they can bring some of their own generation. Let them put up a couple windmills and some solar. And then they can use some energy from the grid and some energy from their own. Or they could be self-dependent, depending on how much energy they need. Maybe they can't. The second is to deal with independent power producers. Now, an independent power producer is an organization that is selling essentially wholesale energy to the market. The market, if you look at a map, you don't just live in the NIPSCO territory, or you don't just live in the Centerpoint territory, or you don't just live in the RMC territory. You live in a much larger multi-state, and in this case, in Indiana, multinational. We've got the same energy grid north of us in Canada that comes into Indiana, called MISO. And the independent power producers trade on that market to get energy dispatched to places that need it. And maybe Duke buys it one day, maybe someone else buys it one day, maybe there's a direct connection. And if we could get some of these data centers to get close or to have partners to get the energy to them, instead of using Duke's infrastructure that we have to pay for, use the independent power producer, let them make a direct connection or let them work through a partner to get the energy there, and it doesn't affect the ratepayer. Let's start working on some of that. Now, some of these companies like Meta and folks, well, we don't want to use coal because it's dirty. Well, electric is electric is electric. And if you need it and the citizens aren't going to let you put it in their backyard or let you put it in Duke, or you have no plan to make affordability part of the game for those who have to help pay for your infrastructure, then you're out of the game. You have to meet us halfway. And so independent power producers would be a great way. Sell most of your electric wholesale and sell some of it to the Meta data center, let's say in Sullivan County, or wherever you want to put it. That's how we get to affordability and still be able to have the economic development and the cyber development that this country needs, that this state needs. So we've talked about permitting, or we've talked about regulation. We've talked about energy mix, which is all the above strategy. We've talked about ways to make things affordable and to balance the 5 pillars. And the last piece of this, to surely protect and grow energy independence in America, is permitting. I get it. People don't want certain things. I'm on the Plan Commission in Westfield, and there are people all the time that don't want a new development in their backyard, don't want a new commercial space in their backyard, don't want whatever. And it is their right in a democratic system to tell us about that. It is our right to do as best we can, but at the end of the day, cannot stop economic development, cannot stop growth. And there are certain laws that keep us from doing so. But permitting, especially because, let me tell you this, energy security is national security, even if it's commercial. We still need data centers. We still need these. We need more power generation. And so we can't even stop. We got to stopping the building of locations that can convert natural gas to electric, for example. We have to stop this kind of thing. And what happens is a lot of these local plan. Now, I believe in local control. I believe in local control, 110%. But there's always a limit and line to everything. And we can't keep... Now, again, I think that the deals need to be better and sweeter to help the ratepayer and the taxpayer. And I think that hopefully this is a turning point with Metas and Googles and crypto companies and whoever else is putting in data centers, or those who are putting in generation, electric or other energy generation plants, is that you need to work with the local municipalities. You need to work with the local counties to make a fair deal. But at the end of the day, we can't stop this in all 92 counties. We can't, again, you can't even get on Facebook if you don't have these data centers. We can't, if you're mining crypto, you got to be, now, maybe a lot of folks aren't mining crypto in take your pick town or county, right? It's a community of farmers and what have you, maybe not. But that doesn't mean at the end of the day that every little thing has to be and can be stopped. We can't keep having NIMBYs, not in my backyard. And so there has to be fair permitting reform that gives the locals a voice and in control, but sets just like as a plan commissioner, I have a 5-step process that I have to make decisions on. I can't make it, but now, you can talk about public safety, but it's like, it is not my job to do the traffic study, for example. So based on what a traffic study says or doesn't say, that's not within my purview. That is the council's, that is TAC. There is a way that gets worked through, but it's not because it's not something that I can weigh. And there just needs, just like a judicial test. And I'm getting ready to run long here, so I've got to end this. But all I'm saying, this is kind of my open letter to what case I would have made. And I hope somebody's listening that uses it, that maybe, get ready to go through the process that I'm missing out on. But regardless of that is the answer. Those are the dirty secrets, but that is the way forward for energy independence in Indiana and how we can rebalance the 5 pillars and make things more affordable. We can't go backwards, but we can freeze moving forward. Thank you so much for listening today. I'm so thankful for your time. I'm so thankful for your support. Again, MikeOnTheRight.com will get you all the episodes, this one and all those prior. Please continue to subscribe, 5-star ratings, tell your friends. Thank you so much. Have a great